honestly, it's just I just didn't perform. I could go on and try and list reasons why, but that's honestly for me and my team to kind of figure out, and it's just going to come off as excuses for the day, when honestly the guys who race well on the day prepared in the right way, and they put up good performances. Good?
Yeah, yes sir.
Alright, so not the race I wanted. This might be a little raw. It's been a few hours. It's, I don't know, 5 hours since I finished the race, 6 hours, something like that. But still pretty fresh and just pretty frustrated overall. Obviously, like I said, I had really good training the week before the race, and some of the best training I've definitely had this year, but backed up a few days of honestly some workouts that I surprised myself on, and was pretty pumped to come into this race. And there's that football interview where he's going, "We talking about practice?" And that's kind of how I'm feeling. Like, practice doesn't matter if you don't perform on the day. And spent a lot of time thinking about the race already, talking with people, just trying to figure stuff out. Honestly, it's just I just didn't perform. I could go on and try and list reasons why, but that's honestly for me and my team to kind of figure out, and it's just going to come off as excuses for the day, when honestly the guys who race well on the day prepared in the right way, and they put up good performances. So to get into the race a little bit, the days leading in, each day felt better and better. Was feeling pretty optimistic about how I'd feel on race day. Was in good spirits this morning. Went through my whole routine. Everything was honestly really solid. Was talking with all the guys, a lot of the athletes on the start line, and had a really good actually start with the race. A little bit of a weird start because it was in a river, and Ironman kind of gave us a pass at creeping forward from the start line. So we were like probably 10-20 meters past the start line before the start gun went off, which was fine with me because I was way to the left with Eric, Hunter Lucy, and T.O. And we had really clear water because everybody wanted to line up in the middle of the river, probably for the current. But in watching the kayaks and the stand-up paddle boarders, the boats, it really wasn't that strong of a current. It's a river, so there's something there, but it was pretty just kind of flat overall. It really wasn't moving fast, so I just took off on my line. A few guys kind of hung around for a little while, and I could see somebody off to my right who was swimming solid and just offline with me for a few hundred meters, and I just fell into my pace and ended up having a gap of 25-30 seconds that I kept checking up on. Felt strong through most of the swim. Maybe the back half just maybe didn't push as hard as I maybe would have if there were some people on my feet. Just because I could tell that there was a lot of people. I looked back a few times. You might have noticed if you were watching the broadcast, but as I was stroking, was just looking back and could tell that the pack behind was not split up at all, which pretty much means that it's going to be a big bike pack. and I just swam my pace, something that wouldn't really gas me a whole bunch, and came out, I don't know, 30 seconds give or take out of the water, and just ran solid to transition. In hindsight, maybe didn't have the gear to like gas it and be super aggressive like I usually do, but try not to make any mistakes, and just got out onto the bike and started just riding my power that I knew I could sustain for the whole race. I was about 330 watts, and just rode that steady. I didn't really try and hammer it out of transition or hammer early on, because we got some storms the night before, and storms were kind of scheduled for today, but you never really know with the weather out here, and it was shaping up to be a hot day. You can just tell from the sky it was partly cloudy. It really wasn't looking like it was going to storm at all. And from my past experiences with hot races, if you push super early on in the ride, and then that group catches you, you burned a ton of matches kind of for no gain at all. So I tested the group a little bit and just rode what I knew I was capable of for about the first half of the ride. Kept doing like mini time checks with myself on big straights, like around corners, just to see, and I felt like they were about 30 to 45 seconds behind me. And I kind of said, okay, if at halfway when we turn left, at the very bottom of the loop, if they're still over 30 seconds, by my estimation and looking back and timing from landmarks, maybe I'll put it in, push it a little bit harder, bump it up to 340, 350, see if I can't grow that gap to a minute and a half or something like that on the back half, because then they'll all maybe look at each other. It's too big of a group. I assumed that there were good runners like Jason West and Steve McKenna, Jackson Laundrie, even Matt Hansen in that group. And, maybe it would be like it was 5 years ago where everybody just looked at each other and let me ride away. But right before we made that turn, I saw somebody coming across, and I assumed it was Rudy, and I was right, because he was riding strong, and he pushed it up the 30-second hill that we had, the one kind of main hill on the course that wasn't like straight rollers, and we had a bit of a gap. But when you have a group of 10 guys all riding together at the 12-meter draft rule, the difference between the front and the back guy is probably about 100 watts, just from, I was smack dab in the middle of that group for the back half of the ride, and the first half of that ride I was right at 330, kind of spot on. And then that second half, by the time we finished, I was under 300 watts average. So we probably were averaging, like for me in the middle of the pack, like 250 to 270, something that's, pretty pedestrian for a half Ironman ride for, what a lot of guys are capable of nowadays. And it just saves everybody's legs. And that's what I kind of knew when I looked back a few times. If there's that big of a group, if you really hammer and then they get motivated and they start slingshotting and there's fresh legs, you just get caught with 10 miles to go. And then especially in the heat, you suffer. So I tried to reset, take in as much fluid as I could, cool myself down. Didn't feel myself on the bike, but that's, sometimes the game. And I just tried to reset and have faith in my run, because I've actually been running really pretty well. Got off the bike, ran with a few guys, Eric and Jackson actually, and Matt Hansen for a little bit. But a mile in, I just started to let them go. I could tell that my legs were not going to be able to sustain that pace, and could feel the heat, and just, I figured a lot of guys would fade or blow up. And honestly, I think that kind of did happen in the race. The heat played a factor. Jason West was, he's a 68, 69 half marathon guy. No matter if it's 100 degrees out or, 60 degrees out, he just is always on the run. Matt Hansen had a great run too. They both ran sub 70-minute 10 or half marathons. But the rest of the guys, it was kind of a toss-up. Wasn't quite sure. But my legs just weren't turning over fast enough to even be close for if any blow-ups happened, except for, I think, Andre Lopez. He was running super well through 11, 12 miles, it looked like. And then I think he suffered from the heat or something, because I saw him on the side of the bridge. It had 12 miles to go. But yeah, for me, it just ended up being survival on the run. About 30 minutes in or so, I kind of looked down at my watch and just made the decision to stop and walk and just douse myself in water every aid station, trying to pick up on something that I learned in Arizona when dealing with the heat and when it gets super hot out, just to kind of shock the body and keep going. Didn't really work. It maybe worked for a few miles, but just ended up, finishing the race. And it's frustrating when you put in really good training and it just doesn't show. And honestly, like I said at the beginning, I could give reasons why I think it didn't happen, things that didn't really go my way during the race. Obviously, the dynamics of this race, when it's a pack of 10, it's not the way I like to race or anything, but I truly thought in the middle of that ride, getting off, if I had a solid run, top 5 wasn't out of the question, and on a great day, podium was still salvageable. But yeah, it's racing, it's sport, and I love this sport and I love racing, but it's also super frustrating and just tough at times. So I know my fitness is still there. Going to go back and recover, get in a little bit more work, and the season isn't over yet. Still have Escape from Alcatraz and a lot of the PTO races that I'm really excited to race, and those have been the main goals of the year. So this one was a big one, but I think we'll probably learn a lot from this, and hopefully be able to have some more solid racing for the rest of the year.